am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Good morning. My name is Liz Jamison Dunn, and I'm your practitioner of service at this morning's service at Hilltop Spiritual Center. We welcome you all, no matter where you are in our virtual service. It's challenging times for all of us. And this morning's service is meant to uplift you, to give you a new, renewed sense of purpose, to say, what is this all about? This month's theme is abundance. And what a wonderful concept. Abundance in all things. And how do we find abundance in these trying times? Well, this morning's service hopefully will help you get there. Not only through the beautiful music and the meditation, but through Reverend Dr. Guy's beautiful words. I'd like to open with a prayer this morning. And the prayer is, welcome. As we breathe together, we know that the divine resides in each one of us and connects us with everything in this world. Every sentient being, every blade of grass. We are all one. And today's words and music are meant to uplift your soul and make your day and your life a little brighter. We honor that. We welcome you and know that you are in the loving presence of the divine. And so it is. The reading is from Sarah Van Brethnock, and it goes, you simply will not be the same person 2 months from now after consciously giving thanks each day for the abundance that exists in your life. And you will have set in motion an ancient spiritual law. The more you have and are grateful for, the more will be given to you. And so it is. And as we begin our meditation for this morning, relax, get in a comfortable position. Just allow yourself to go within. We are going on a journey. Allow yourself the space, powerfully choosing that this is time for you to grow and connect with yourself. As we go on this journey together of letting go and inviting in, thoughts will come and go. Our mind may distract us, but be gentle. Be gentle on yourself. Allow the thoughts to drift away and come back to center when you notice that you have moved from purpose. Refocus back on your breath, your intention, and on the words. Know that as you breathe in, you're breathing in light and love. And as you're exhaling, you're releasing tensions and fears and frustrations. This is an invitation to meditate on the concept of abundance. And what is abundance? It is the existence of infinite possibility and reality within resources, opportunity, wealth, love, vision, expansion, kindness, generosity, respect, and the flow of all of these to and from our lives without attachment. honoring our presence when we are receiving and accepting the release when we are giving. Think of what abundance means to you. Is it love, health, wellness, creativity, generosity, kindness, forgiveness? Is it a mindset? How would you respond if all your abundant desires were fulfilled? What would it feel like? How would you allow gratitude to show up for the abundance that you have manifested and received? Just know that Spirit allows us to go within, allows us to go into the universe with the energy and all expansiveness of working significantly and abundantly more in your life. Just know that to be abundant is God's wish for all of us. And in this, we give thanks. And so it is.
The more you have and the more you are grateful for, the more will be given to you. So welcome, dear friends, to our continuing conversation on your abundant life. This whole month we've been talking about this idea of abundance, that flow of good, that continual and renewable source of all that we desire, all that we need, all that we want, that continually comes. And it flows from this place of the divine. You know, one of the things that we said at the very beginning of the conversations of this month is a quote from Dallas Willard, who says that our abundance is anchored in our knowledge of God. And so we're looking at abundance from the perspective of spirit. And I want to explore that at the very beginning with this idea of what it means to be spiritual. What is a spiritual life? What is the knowledge of God? What is spirituality? And I think I'd say this, is that spirituality kind of comes down to two things. First is the quest for truth. And I'm going to speak more about that next week. But the other is this, is how we manage our power, where the source of our power is and where we give our power away. So there's this book called Hegel for the Wired Mind by Slobodan Sežek. And he says something really interesting that I think is very pertinent to these days. He says the old paradigm of power was the accumulation of data. But today, the new paradigm on power is knowing what to avoid, knowing what to say no to. And so what I want to talk a little bit about today is this idea of what we need to hold up and what we need to fold up. You know, in last week's prayer that is part of our spiritual practice, there's this wonderful line in there of what needs to go, let it go. And what needs to come, let it come. But often it can't come if we're holding on to things that are draining us from our power. You know, a perfect example of this is social media. Now, I don't want to get too far down on social media, but let's be real frank about what it is. Whether we're talking about Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or any of these kinds of things, these are very sophisticated machines. Their sole purpose is to harvest our behaviors, to influence us, to learn from us, to create algorithms that drive us to be even more than a consumer, but to be a commodity. And so I think for us living today, what we've been talking about is finding balance, finding where we give our power away and where we begin to take it back. So, you know, one of the things that I'm really aware of for myself personally, and maybe you've noticed this yourself, is that there's this kind of low-grade anxiety that's out there. You know, it's being called several names, you know, doom scrolling or, you know, low-grade anxiety, depression, lots of things. And I don't necessarily want to get into naming it. But let's recognize what it is there's a sort of contagion that it's easy for us to be so caught up in things that we sort of lose that quality of our own imagination. And I think, of all the areas of our power, our imagination is the most important one. Something that all the mystics have talked about in almost every spiritual tradition is that you and I have been invited to co-create this unfinished and unfolding world that we call our home, that we get to kind of create it. We're the agents of the spirit, so to speak. We're the eyes, the ears, and the hands of a living and loving presence. And if we are the co-creators, I think it's important for us to recognize, one, is that we have all that we need. It is already here. Nothing else needs to be created. When God created, the universe, it did not run out of rocks. It's not missing anything. So the first thing is that all that we need is here. And the second, which I think is the key, is this, is that faculty that connects us to the divine, that faculty that connects us to source, is our imagination. It is the most powerful tool that we have. And it's one that we should cultivate and nurture and guard. Because, without our imagination, we flatline. We simply fall back on what we've known. In the philosophy and teaching of New Thought, imagination is how we create, whether we call it a spiritual prototype or a mental equivalent or whatever words we do. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our particular denomination, wrote a whole chapter in his Science of Mind text on this idea of mental equivalence, which is basically this. If we create it in our mind and hold a picture of it and connect it to something emotional, our outward world reflects our inward world. A way to think about it is this, is that the inner life is cause. The outer life, the external, is effect. So what is happening on the inside is being manifest on the outside. Let me give you an example of that. Suppose there are about 5 or 6 of us sitting in a room, and I tasked all of us to go home and make a chair. So all of us have an idea of what a chair would look like. Maybe some of us grew up in the Pacific Northwest, where wood would be something that we would look at, or maybe in the Southwest where there would be wool and sheep and that kind of stuff. Or maybe somebody was living in the Arctic and they understood ice carving. Whatever the case may be, is that each of us would create the chair based on our idea or imagination of what that chair would be like. And this is called first the mental equivalent, which happens on the inside, and then the effect, the product itself, that happens on the outside. But it proceeds from the inside. And that's also true with our emotional states and how they operate. In the Eastern tradition, there's this whole idea of energy centers or chakras that sort of run our personal power, our creative ability. And sometimes they can get stagnated, or there's an energy source that begins to operate with them. And I'd like to do a little exercise with you right now, just to give you an example of what that feels like and looks like. So just kind of settle yourself and just allow me to sort of guide you through this process. So what I want to look at is this, is how fear affects us. From Frank Herbert's Dune, remember? Fear is the mind killer. So imagine then, if we start at the very root of our being, what's known as the root chakra, that area right there at the very base of the spine, where that kundalini energy, that creative force begins to activate itself. And it's often said that it's like a red, like a fire engine red disc or ball that begins to whirl. And it deals with our roots. our connection, family. And so here's my question. If fear is running into us, what does someone who lives in fear, how do they experience belonging? Well, of course, there's uncertainty. Of course, there's anxiety. Of course, there's fear of separation or abandonment. And so there's never really that sense of feeling home, because home is something very transitory and could disappear at any minute. And then we let that energy begin to rise up right around the area of the navel, which is known as the second chakra. And it's the area of creativity. And so someone who is living in fear, how do they create? Well, they're guarded, or they don't create. They hoard. They hold on. There's not a sense of expansion. And this is like that orange disc that begins to whirl and turn. But if there's fear in there, imagine what happens, how that creative force is restricted. And then we allow it to travel up just a little bit more to the area of the solar plexus, the area of our own sense of worth and self-esteem. So someone who is in the contagion of fear, what is their idea of self-esteem? If you yourself are living in fear or anxiety, what's your sense of self-worth? Again, there may be a sense of restricting or hoarding or holding on. People who are afraid generally don't have a high level of self-esteem. And, to engage in the spiritual path, to live in the image and likeness of the divine, it's important that we have a healthy sense of self-esteem. So if that contagion of fear is, restricting or siphoning off our own personal power, there's a sense of not feeling worthy or able or capable. And then it travels up to that beautiful emerald green area of the heart. And the question is, someone who is afraid, someone who is anxious, someone who has an energy leak due to fear, how do you love? We don't really fully love. Again, because there's abandonment, there's restriction, there's whatever the cases could be of what fear does. And so there's never that ability to love fully, to embrace, to engage. And then it travels up to the area of the throat, an indigo blue. And this is how we ask for what we want and speak our sense of being in the world. And if we're afraid, we're restricted, we hold back, we bargain. We don't necessarily just simply say that there is good for me in my life and I ought to have it. Someone who's afraid would never say that with sincerity. They may mock it, they may parrot it, but it wouldn't come from truth. And then we go up to this area which is known as the third eye. And it's how we see the world. And again, if someone is living in fear, or if you're living in fear or anxiety, how do you see the world? Dangerous. There's fluoride in the water and communists in the streets, as we used to say back in the 70s. But there's fear. There's conspiracies. Someone's out to get us. We have to get us. Law and order is the most important thing because we're afraid. We see the world as a very frightening place. And how do we co-create this unfolding world if what we're seeing is frightening? And then finally, the crown chakra, this flaming crown. Sometimes it looks like a root system that literally takes us into the starry world. It's how we pray, because it's how we connect to the divine. But in many ways, like a root system, it's how we connect to our spiritual nourishment. And if we're afraid, again, it's restricted. It holds back. It doesn't expand, and it doesn't receive all the nutrients that are there that are important for it to have. And so, here's our energy system. Here's how we're running our personal power. It's again, what's accumulating, what's collecting. And what we understand is then, what do we need to avoid? Well, we need to avoid putting ourselves in situations that sap us of our personal power, whether that be persons, places, or situations, belief systems, social media, the news, whatever it is that keeps us from that creative level that holds us back. And so then, if that's what we are trimming or culling from us, in this idea of Buddhism that we talked about, this idea of mental hygiene, then how do we begin to nurture? How do we begin to feed ourselves into the things that we're wanting? And so what I'm going to offer is this is a whole different way of looking at it. So what we've been talking about this whole month is that life and love all come from the same source. In fact, they're really interchangeable. Life and love are essentially the same thing, because if the essence of divinity itself is love, and the essence of love itself is to create, and what it creates is life, then again, the inner, the cause is love. The affect, the external, the expression of love is life. And we've been talking about this in the spiritual practices that we've been doing. First of all, we start with this memory of an ancient poem that begins to imagine the divine like a loving shepherd that leads us and guides us and brings us to rest in grassy meadows where we're satisfied with all that we need and all that is there, and we feel safe, and we're refreshed and reposed by these still waters, and we're guided even in the most frightening of situations, and we're given opportunities to reconcile with those whom we feared or what we perceived as enemies. So in an imagination of being guided, of being led, of being in partnership with a loving presence, everything that we need is given to us. And we shall dwell in that place in all the experiences of our life. And if we hold this imagination, if we hold this consciousness about ourselves, then the second practice that we've been coming from, which is a rereading of 1 Corinthians 13, is that we are the presence of love, that we are patient and kind and enduring, and that we heal. And so, this is our other spiritual practice that we do. And then we hold this beautiful prayer of knowing what to hold on and knowing what to let go, knowing how appropriate it is to release so that we can let that which is new come. This has been really personal for me this week, because I realized, man, my power has just been draining because I've been holding on to something. And the reason I've been holding on to it is out of fear. Because I think, God, if I let this go, what's going to be next? What's going to be there? There's nothing left, or I don't know what it is. I didn't have an imagination for what it was because I was so afraid. And then it hit me. Let it go. Allow yourself to be guided and led. And when I did that, the imagination began to open up, resources became available, a way was open for me that I had no imagination for. And it was fabulous. And perhaps you've had these experiences too. When something has been just so painful or so burdensome, when you've finally gotten tired of banging your head against a wall and you've released it, then it creates the space for that which is new to come in. So Ernest Holmes has this quote from his book, this thing called life. He says this: life flows into everything, through everything. It passes into every human event and translates itself through every human act. If you learn to think of life as flowing through your every action, you will soon discover that the things you give your attention to are quickened with new energy, for you are breathing the very essence of being into them. And so here's our practice for the week. It's basically reflecting on that same energy system that I talked about a few minutes ago, but doing it not through fear, but through love. And so again, settle yourself back, relax for a moment, and just let me guide you through this. So again, if you feel comfortable to just let your gaze be so that you are looking without seeing, you are hearing without listening, that you are breathing. Because when we breathe, everything changes. When we breathe, we find our way back into our body. And when we find our way back into our body, we find our place in the cosmos. We know what is ours to do, and we know what it is for us to let go. So imagine then that this presence of love is just pouring through you. And there it is at the very base of the spine, as this red disc begins to open and whirl, and it is filled with the presence of love. So as a loving presence, how do you belong? Who is your tribe? Who is your family? Who do you give and receive love from? And how that energizes us. It becomes the very foundation of our being. That we are loved unconditionally from the divine itself and in all the aspects that are created from this. Tribe, our community, our family. And we just let love then begin to move up the spine to the area around the navel, just below. And there's this orange, like a navel orange disc or ball that begins to open and whirl. How does creativity express itself through love? How does love create? It's expansive. It's open. It's resourced. It connects with all things. It enjoys. It is filled with joy. And again, letting this travel up to the area of our solar plexus, this yellow disc. As a loving person, how do I love myself? Curious. Practice self-care. I let go of what no longer serves me, and I embrace that which nurtures me, feeds me. I know I am a center of divine consciousness within the vast whole. I am a center of love within the vast whole. And then again, it begins to travel up to our heart, this beautiful emerald green disc that begins to open, whirl. You know, sometimes they say it's like a 1,000-petal lotus, whatever the visual, however your imagination works. But how does love love? It loves, it expands, it's opened, it's curious, it embraces, it heals all things, renews all things, appreciates all things, is excited about things. And when we love going to this indigo disc at our throat, how do we ask for what we want? We do with confidence. We do with joy. We understand. How do we speak? We speak clearly, powerfully, courageously with our heart. And how do we see the world? As a place of engagement, of opportunity, how everything is interconnected to everything else. And as we see the world, our natural response is this: how do I serve? And then this beautiful white gold crown, this root system that connects us into all the cosmos. How do we pray? How do we pray? In love, we pray in gratitude. We pray in joy. We pray in thanksgiving. We pray in openness and curiosity and in confidence. And again, just reflecting on those beautiful words from Liz's reading this morning, that the more that we have and the more that we are grateful for, the more we will be given, or the more that is given to us. And so here is my prayer and my blessing to you, that life is an abundance of shared gifts, and that love travels through the very energy system of our being. And as it does, it draws to us all that nurtures us, feeds us, supports us, strengthens us, and it gives us the courage to release that which no longer serves us. So our practice again, the 23rd Psalm, the practice again, our mantra, and the practice perhaps to listen to this meditation or this guided thought of allowing this energy system of love to move through our chakra, our energy body, nurturing us, empowering us, so that we can, through the power of love, co-create with all creation a world that is just, equitable, sustainable for all life, a world that worked for all. Namaste. So thank you again for joining us in part of our Sunday celebration. I'm just so grateful that you have chosen to become part of our spiritual community in all that it is. We continue to look for new and interesting ways that we can support you and continue to create ways that we can come together in community. You may have noticed, if you are getting our newsletter, that you are now getting the Wednesday practice. And I invite you to do that, to join with us. In a week or two, we'll be giving some announcements as we're looking at a way of doing a soft opening here in Fallbrook. But rest assured, we continue to create this virtual experience. And there's some really exciting things that are coming down the road that I'm excited to share with you when the time is appropriate. And again, I want to thank you for your partnership. The partnership that says, yes, you allow us into your heart, into your home, that we offer these tools, but we simply love each other into wholeness. And that you continue to generously support us, because we are in this together, and there is an interdependence on each of us and what we are asked to do. And so, my dear, dear friend, to those whom you love and those whom you receive love from, I wish you many, many blessings.
You and me, we speak the same language. Not just some words, it's everything. Got the tickets to where the sky meets the freeway. I feel every word every time we sing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How time slows down with you. Pick it up now. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And we're headed to forever. It couldn't get any better. We, yeah, you and me. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Cause we're doing it together. It couldn't get any better. We, yeah, you and me. I like who I am with you in vicinity. I like how I look looking through your eyes. We build each other up with a sweet affinity. Watch the ripples grow as it multiplies. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How time slows down. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And we're headed to forever. It couldn't get any better. We cause we're doing it together. It couldn't get any better. We, yeah, you and me. We'll keep doing what we do and do it like we mean it. Not just in words, our hearts and souls. We take what we got and twist it into music. If it's coming to an end and I don't wanna let go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How time slows down with you, and I don't wanna pick it up now. Here we go, here we go, here we go, and we're headed to forever. It couldn't get any better. We, yeah, you and me. Here we go, here we go, here we go, cause we're doing it together. It couldn't get any better. We, yeah, you and me. Here we go, here we go, here we go, cause we're doing it together. It couldn't get any better. We, yeah, you and me. Yeah, you and me, we speak the same language. Not just the words, it's everything.